Okay guys, today for writing we're going to be doing a different type of question. These are cross-text questions, and we did talk about that a little bit yesterday in reading. We integrated some information from both texts and kind of answered some questions about it. So that's similar to what we're going to do here. I'm going to read you two texts. They will both be in the Google Classroom. They are just view files. They're just there for you to read. You don't do any work on them. They are just there for you to read. One is bear, which you're familiar with. The other one is called hurricane warning. Okay, I'm going to reread bear to you. On Saturday, Jenna walked toward the garage to get her bike. All of a sudden, bushes near the garage started shaking. An instant later, a huge furry head, then shoulders, emerged from behind the leaves. Jenna's next thought was a single word: bear. Jenna's fourth grade class at Smithtown Elementary School had discussed recent bear sightings. Her teacher had posted a sign about what to do if anyone saw a bear. Jenna never expected that one would show up in her backyard. Now she was glad that she had read those rules for keeping safe near bears. Jenna knew not to look the bear in the eyes or to run away. The sign said to make noise, so Jenna started yelling and banging her bike helmet. She slowly backed toward the house. Fortunately, the bear never approached her. "Mom, there's a black bear in our yard," Jenna shouted as she burst into the kitchen. Her mother raced down the stairs and looked out the window. The bear was climbing the big maple tree in their yard. Jenna's mother quickly found a phone number for the State Wildlife Service. Within 10 minutes, 2 officers were at their door. Jenna pointed to a low branch of the maple tree where the bear had settled. The officers went to their van and brought out a gun. "Are they going to kill the poor bear?" Jenna asked. "That's a tranquilizer gun," her mother said. "They'll shoot the bear with medicine to put the bear to sleep. Then the officers can take it away." What will happen to the bear? Jenna wondered. "The officers will take the bear to the forest away from town and release it." After the bear was safely stowed in the animal control van, one of the officers thanked Jenna and her mother for their call. "Be sure to tell your neighbors to put their garbage in a place where the bears can't reach it," he said. "Bears can smell food from a long distance. Raiding garbage cans is easier than hunting for food, so bears will keep coming back if people aren't careful." I promised to tell my whole class about it on Monday. Okay, so we're familiar with that story and the things that they talked about in there to being prepared for bears. Okay, so now I'm going to read hurricane warning. This is the same document that you're going to have available for you to read only in your Google Classroom. Hurricane warning. Jack carried a bag of groceries to a large closet on the second floor of his family's home. He placed it next to 4 sleeping bags, flashlights, and water jugs. "Even if the hurricane gets closer, we should be fine," his dad said. Then they headed back downstairs to watch the news with Jack's mom and little brother Max. Jack could hear the howling wind and rain outside. A giant storm was expected to hit the coast near their home that night. Most of their neighbors had already evacuated. Jack's parents had decided to stay. The TV screen splashed photos of pounding rain, flooding, and fallen trees. A big tree had already crashed into Jack's own backyard. The storm continued through the evening. Jack's dog whined nonstop, and his little brother Max cried. When the gale calmed for a moment, Max fell asleep. "If the storm gets really bad and windows break, we'll spend the rest of the night in the storm room," Jack's dad said. When Jack awoke, the rain and wind had subsided. In the morning light, he could see that the living room windows were still undamaged. He joined his parents in the front of their big picture window. They felt lucky. Their house was on a rise above the rest of the neighborhood. Down the street, several homes were surrounded by floodwater. Tree trunks, branches, and other debris drifted in the water. Looking out the window, Jack saw town rescue workers already on the job. Some were clearing out trash. Others were checking fallen poles and wires. A rescue boat motored up to a neighbor's door. Officers helped Mr. Reed and his wife into the boat. She was carrying their little dog. Around dinner time, somebody knocked at their front door. Jack's dad answered it. "You folks all okay?" an officer asked. "Is everyone safe and sound?" "We're just fine," Jack's father answered. "Thank you for checking on us." So today's lesson is going to focus on the fact that these are both stories about nature and how to get ready for nature events. So if we are talking about cross-text questions, okay, we're looking at one question that you have to bring information in from both texts. So gathering details for cross-text questions, part 1. So we're going to have a part 1 today. Tomorrow will be part 2. Cross-text prompts ask one question about two texts. To answer the question, you must gather details from both texts. Our question, we've now heard both of the stories. So our question for both texts is bear and hurricane warning both show the value of being prepared for problems caused by nature. Explain how each story suggests this theme. Use details from both stories. So we're going to be using a graphic organizer, and you're going to be doing it in your writing journal. You are not going to do it on a Google Docs. It's going to be in your writing journal to collect details needed to answer the question. So as I carefully read this prompt, I think about what's needed to answer the question. So the words both and each tell me that my answer must explain something about the two stories named in the question. I need to use details from both stories to write my answer. So in your journal, I want you to draw a T-chart that looks something like this. Okay, so up here I have bear and hurricane warning. Okay, so pause the video and draw this in your journal. The first story we're going to start with is bear. And that's all we're going to do today is fill out this side of our T-chart. So we're going to start with the story that we have heard several times and we're the most familiar with. So if we are thinking of something in bear, some details in bear that suggest that being prepared for problems caused by nature is important, and we're thinking about bear, we're going to think about some details that we've talked about before. So the first detail I'm going to put in mine, and again, I am typing this in a Google Docs. You will not. You will be writing this in your journal under your T-chart. The first detail I'm going to put under here is the first major thing that happens in the story. So Gina sees a bear in her yard. Okay, pause the video and write this in your journal. Okay, the second detail I can think of from the story that reminds me of how important it is to be prepared for nature is the rules that she learned at school to keep her from getting hurt. So I'm going to type that in here. The rules she learned at school to keep from getting hurt. Pause the video and put that in your chart. And the final thing I'm going to add in there is something specifically that she mentions, a rule that she specifically mentions about bears to keep from getting hurt. That's the one about not looking in the bear in the eye. So I'm going to put, she does not look the bear in the eyes or run away. Okay, and what does she do instead? Well, she makes noise and backs up slowly. Okay, so pause the video and write these last two details in your journal. Okay, so again, you should have a T-chart drawn in your writing journal. You should have bear and hurricane warning written at the top. We're only doing bear, the bear side today. Gina sees a bear in her yard. The rules she learned at school to keep from getting hurt. Okay, this is an important thing about being prepared for nature. She does not look the bear in the eyes or run away. She makes noise and backs up slowly. This is the only activity that you have to do today. Tomorrow we're going to choose some details from the story Hurricane Warning.